Oh my God, therapeutic.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to the MMA Opinion Roundtable. This is a special Cage Warriors edition of Roundtable as we preview the trilogy of Cage Warriors cards this week. In the spirit of the show, we are joined on the line today by Cage Warriors bantamweight Jack Maguire from Cork. How are you doing, Jack?
All good, lads. How are we getting on?
Very good. We are also joined by Cage Warriors flyweight who competes this Saturday at Cage Warriors 122, Mr. Darren O'Gorman. How are you doing, Darren?
Good, thanks, no lads, and yourselves?
Very well. And I'm also joined, just because there's three of us on the show, I said we'd mix things up and get someone who is not from Cork. And of course, we had the whole world to choose from. So we traveled 50 kilometers north up to Clonmel. And we got Mr. Andy Hickey, the Twitter aficionado and statistician, with us at the MMA Opinion. How are you doing, Andy?
Delighted to spend the evening in the company of these fine gentlemen and yourself, Paul, of course.
Very good, and we're all excited for the upcoming Cage Warriors card. I'm just going to kick things off there and throw questions straight to you, Jack. You were originally scheduled to be on this trilogy series, but of course you suffered an injury, and I believe it's a broken jaw. Do you want to tell us how that happened and how you're healing up from that injury?
Fuck it.
Get things kicked off right.
straight into it. So I see how this is supposed to go. But no, I was supposed to fight Thursday, but I had to pull out because I fractured my jaw. And it was one of the men on this screen is responsible for it. But that I'll keep that hidden anyway. I'll keep that hidden.
I don't think there's any big secrets there.
Hold my hands up there. Apologies for that, Jack.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
It was fucking terrible when you were telling me.
You're all good. But I was wondering, that technique would never work if I headbutted someone's foot, but obviously it doesn't work like. But I was when Darren was over before he went back home. He was doing a bit of training with us. We were both preparing for the fight. It was brilliant. But it was like such controlled, light sparring, and I just got caught right in the jaw. But obviously, I was probably just chatting shit, and he just booted me in the head. But no, I'm sure that happens, and it wasn't even stuff that was
quite a late shot too. Like, to be honest, like it was nothing of it there. Like,
no, it was very light. I have a weak jaw, I think. But
I doubt that now after your last scrap inside there.
These things do happen.
But sure, that's the tail of the tape at the moment. So, but I think I'm good to go now next week to kind of start contact again. But for sure that happens. I mean, like you can't think you're going to be in for every fight and go according to plan and not have any snags or anything. But like that happens every now and again. So it just so happened that it was Darren did it. He just wanted to steal the line right away from another fellow Cork man. But I let him have it this time.
It was a parting gift.
Oh yeah, thanks for that.
I wasn't too long getting one back off you anyway, straight away after it.
I actually did. I think I threw like 4 head kicks after. I was like, fuck you anyway.
And I suppose just sticking with Jack there, you competed on the first Trilogy series as well. How was that like, kind of the experience of the Trilogy series and fighting in front of an audience for the first time?
Yeah, it was unreal. It's just it was kind of the same as every fight in terms of actually fighting. But like, yeah, it was a bit different. You had to kind of go in and you were ushered in to get tested and you had to wait in the room. And we had to wait like a day and a half before we got our results. So that was kind of the only thing different. You were kind of just locked away in your room. But once you were out, it was kind of the same as always. If you're ever fighting abroad, you're kind of socializing with a bit of everyone. You see the other fighters and stuff. So, and as well with the IMAFs before at amateur, it was very similar. You'd be up, it was fighting in front of no crowds. You'd be fighting at 12 o'clock in the day, like, or 9 in the morning, so nobody's up watching it. So like I was lucky enough that I was able to fight with no crowds before, but it was different now. It was a different spectacle with Cage Warriors because they had all the lights, the show, the TV, the UFC Fight Pass. So like, yeah, there was a difference there. But once the first few seconds are gone, you get hit in the face. You're kind of like, all right, yeah, I forgot all about that, But that's great to be part of. And Cage Warriors, they run a tight shift, and it's brilliant to fight for.
Very good. And Mr. Andy Hickey, what do you have for Jack?
Well, Jack, I noticed your social media presence. You're a new fighter. You're 1-1 as a pro. Obviously, you have an extensive amateur career. You're very polite, and even Instagram there. You're not on Twitter. Just what do you think of the new wave of fighters coming through that are very vocal and talk a lot of shit and are trying to bring out fights like that. Do you ever put any thought into it, or do you just want to stick to yourself and ignore it?
Well, do you know what? Myself and Darren were actually talking about it when he was home. We were on about, just it's a disaster, like, because I absolutely despise the whole social media, and like I hadn't did it all. I had no social media really up until maybe before Christmas, before the last trilogy event, because I was told, like, I was basically just being told you won't get any fights if you don't kind of, our sponsorships or make your life a bit easier. You need to make a small bit of an effort. And I was kind of like, Jesus, like, it's not my kind of thing, no, in fairness, but it's the kind of necessary evil that you kind of have to do, really, just to make a bit of effort. Just if you want to kind of go somewhere with the career, like, it's just it's the way the sport has gone that you need to make an effort with that kind of side of things. So even though I do hate every second of it, I'd have it gone if I wasn't fighting. But as I said, I'll happily make the sacrifice for my own, I suppose, health, really, just to do that online thing for a while, and hopefully I can get rid of it if I get any sort of a name and just work on that then. But for now, I kind of have to just suck it up and do what everyone's doing. But I wouldn't go about it by chatting them out of shit now, and the kind of self-praise that people give themselves now. And I couldn't do it to myself, like, so I'll try and take the piss out of it as long as I can. But if that's the way I go about it, that's the way I will. But it doesn't suit me, and it's not my personality, really. Like, and Darren was saying the same about him. Like, it doesn't suit a lot of us, but we've all realised that if we want to get where we want to go, like, you're going to need to make that sacrifice just to even show a little bit of effort, even for people around you and stuff. So it's just what we got to do.
Unnecessary evil.
Yeah,
it's very.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very obvious when it's not organic, though, isn't it? And when people are trying too hard, like a COVID Covington, or it'll have to be balanced how we go about it. But I recommend you join the Twitter world anyway. It's good fun over there.
I've gotten back into it again recently there, right?
The Twitter, I've never been on.
Yeah. No. It's hard, but
it's hard.
Yeah, and we'll shift our focus over to Mr. Darren O'Gorman, who is, of course, fighting this Saturday. The last time we saw you out in the Cage Warriors cage was that Cage Warriors 113 card, 3 days before the big lockdown in the UK. Tell me a little bit about that, because I know the fight within 24 hours was moved from London to Manchester. And how was that as a fighter competing on that card with the big move and everything that happened about it, all the controversy that everyone wanted it to shut down, and all eyes were kind of on that event as well in a way, because of the circumstances around it as opposed to the card itself. And it proved to be a phenomenal card, but I just want to get your opinion on everything that kind of went on in that experience.
I think being on the card, you kind of had so much more focus on the fight that didn't really pay as much attention to what was going on, like, around it, like with the lockdowns and stuff like that. I think definitely the change of plan, having to go, like, just to travel up like midweek, as opposed to similar to what the situation is now. Like, we had to just travel up on, I think, was it like the Wednesday or the Tuesday for the Friday or the Saturday fight. I think the Tuesday for like the Friday fight. And yeah, I think we were just kind of so focused on the fight, you didn't really pay attention to much of it until after it was done. Then yeah, it was like, as I said, people from the outside seemed to had like chatting, but as I said, I felt really calm about it. I was just in my own kind of like different universe at the time, like, just focusing on that fight until I came out of it, and I was like, everything was just shut down. Then you're like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, and I suppose how was lockdown for you in general, given we haven't seen you since then? How has it been putting training together, and has it been any different, or has there been massive differences in work and training, etc.?
Definitely been restricted a lot, yeah. Changes quite a bit. I mean, all the gyms kind of having to shut, and then we could still get in and do like sessions every day, but it's definitely restricted. The classes, the numbers aren't there as they were. But the first, I would think, for that show that was on the Trilogy, the first few months of it, I felt like definitely we were getting like had to be done in the park, a lot of our training sessions and stuff like that. Took me kind of a couple of months after that to get back into the routine of it.
Yeah. And Andy?
Yeah, it's like fighters tend to live in their own bubble, Darren. But Saturday night is a huge night for France, and of course you're opening the show against the Frenchman Nicolas Leblanc. Have you paid any heed to Cage Warriors push in that direction with a huge amount of French fighters coming through? There's 4 on the card Saturday, and although you're in home territory, shall we say, over in England where you're based now, there will be a big vibe around the place. There's going to be 4 French fighters, and you're our sole representative over there. So, do you take any heed to the fact that there's a French invasion coming, and you're the first man on the line on Saturday night?
No, not at all. Not at all. Bring him on.
I really hope LeBlanc wins this one.
D-Day 2.0. So we are going to look at Thursday's fight. Sorry, go on, Jack.
No, I was just saying there with Darren, with the training, with the lockdowns and stuff, it's very different to get yourself up for a fight. It's you really have to fucking dig down to get your training right and even get yourself pumped up for a fight, because it's very different, and it's very strange. But hopefully it won't last too much longer. But at least we still have fights to look forward to anyway. So it's definitely different. Yeah, it's definitely different.
Exactly. And speaking of fights, we are going to look at. We'll start with Thursday's card, Cage Warriors 120. Andy, I know you're excited about this trilogy. What fights are kind of catching your attention there on Thursday's card?
Straight off the bat, I'd probably say the big one for us, of course, is Paul Yu, who's returning after his close loss to Jordan Vichenik, and he's got a tough one coming up here. This one of the things I love about Cage Warriors is there's no padding. You fight the best of the best in your weight class or whoever's around you, and he's fighting James Hendon, who's 5-0, 4-0 in Cage Warriors. You think coming off the Vichenik split, he very well could have been fighting Sharia for the title on Saturday night, and now he's against a tough one, against an up-and-comer who wants to take his spot. So yeah, Hendon's a beast. So I think that's an absolute cracker on Thursday night.
Yeah, that's going to be a great scrap.
For sure. I know as well we have the main event in the middleweight division. You have Jamie Richardson against Kent Copeland, and of course Kent just making his return from his spell in Bellator. He went 2-3 in Bellator, but I mean that doesn't do justice, because he put on some great performances over there, and that's after a long stint in boxing as well. Of course, he had the pro boxing, 11 fights in pro boxing before that. Is this a big draw in your opinion, lads, for Cage Warriors to get someone of the ilk of Copeland, who was kind of a recognizable name on the Bellator roster for the last couple of years, to make his Cage Warrior debut?
Well, I'll come in straight away and say I haven't heard the man before in my life.
That's to put my hands up there as well.
As you're right at the start, Andy. We fucking live in a bubble, and it's definitely our own bubble. And I have no idea who those two men you were talking about there.
Well, I tell you though, Ken Copeland is shared a ring with Melvin Manhoff, and that is good enough for me. Any man that gets in there with Melvin Manhoff.
I'll take for granted that if I see someone is on the main event for Cage Warriors, I know that they're just no average Joe. As you said, nobody is minded in Cage Warriors, and you are in against you won't have an easy fight there. Darren's been fighting with them a long time, and he'll tell you straight up you won't get one there. And even when I signed with them for my first, I knew that just because it's my first doesn't mean it's going to be easy. So I can imagine if someone's fighting for a title fight or for a main event, they're there for a reason, So there's no denying that. But as I said, I don't do much study and looking into it, but I won't deny that they're there for a reason.
What Cage Warriors are doing here, it's obviously we're building into that massive title fights and epic fights Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Copeland and Richardson are just going to bang. There's no grappling here whatsoever. Cage Warriors have put them in this main event because somebody's going to sleep, and they're trying to bring us in with fireworks into Friday and Saturday. And there's no other way around it here.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, Richardson, of course, his 7 KOs and his 9 wins. And Copeland, he's not the biggest finisher, but he's a big hitter. And with that boxing record as well, I think he's just fought top elite guys is the reason he hasn't got so many finishes on his record. He still has a few, but not to the percentage of Richardson. But like you say, Andy, there's going to be some finishing going on in this card. The whole way card through on Thursday, actually. I know you were interested in the Will Curry and Christian Leroy Duncan fight as well.
Yeah, Duncan came through IMAF, so he's only 2-0 as a pro, but he's got a huge amount of experience. I know, Jack, you went through the IMAF, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah, I did. I went to a few of them, yeah.
So I was talking to Brad Wharton the other night, and he said, don't rest on a guy with 2-0 who's been in IMAF. He's been in with some serious talent. So you might be the man to tell us.
Big time, yeah. Those IMAFs are, I think they're... that's no joke either. At amateur, it's you know, when you say the people who are representing their countries at the Olympics, you know, it's still considered an amateur sport, like, but I wouldn't want to wrestle with a wrestler who wrestles in the Olympics, you know, even though he's considered amateur, you know. So, like, it's kind of the same idea. A lot of countries there that get the funding, they hold on to their amateurs and they represent them in the IMAFs, and they're killers, like, you know. So, some, like, as I said, even if you don't have a medal in the IMAFs, if you fought there, or you've come across some beasts, like, so coming off that is definitely no joke.
For sure, and to add to that, he's actually medalled at a few of the IMAF events. He's taken part in 4 IMAF events in total. And if you look at their record, so Will Curry 5-0 and 5-0 as an AMI as well. Obviously, just on paper, it looks like he's the experienced guy, but what Andy's bang on here, Christian is 2-0, but he's 17-6 as an AMI, and that's invaluable experience, especially considering that nearly half of them were in the IMAFs. This isn't the fight that everyone, I think, sees it as, and I think Leroy Duncan is one to watch coming forward in that middleweight division for sure.
Where's Leroy Duncan from?
He is, I think, is he Birmingham?
Did you say Leroy Duncan or Christian Duncan?
Christian Leroy Duncan.
Oh, Christian. Oh yeah. I don't know him. No.
Yeah, but he's definitely going to be one to watch going forward anyway.
Yeah.
You also have the Figlak brothers on that card. Darren, did you fight one of the Figlaks before?
No, I didn't.
I thought in my head you fought one of the Figlaks before.
No, you fought I think it was in your 3rd or 4th fight, you fought a guy called Fiblak. It's really close.
Oh, in my what was he? Yeah, he was. That was what was that show on? It was Irish show. Was it Clan Wars? Was it? No, not Clan Wars. It was
Cage Legacy or something.
No, not Cage Legacy. I can't remember what it was called.
Easy mistake to make on my part anyway, considering I'm half blind.
We do have Irish representation on Thursday night as well. With Decky's going on Thursday night. He's in a difficult one against Kieran Lister. He bounced back with a good win against Adam Ventry there, but again, they just don't give any easy bouts. It's ridiculous at times how tough cage warriors can be on the guys, you know.
Yeah, and what's mad to think here is McLennan made his amateur debut against James Gallagher. He also fought Steve Amiable, who we thought might join us at some point today. He still might, but he also fought him at amateur. So the guy's fought some absolute legit guys, but he's been thrown to the wolves nearly in every fight in his cage warriors.
Yeah, I'd say he loves it though. Decky's game. He's always good to go. Yeah,
great fighter to watch.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Sure. Very exciting. Yeah, he's a cool dude as well. In fairness to him, he's cool as a breeze. Nice guy.
And we will move on to the Friday night card. Andy, what kind of catches your attention right away off of that? There's obvious interest from the Irish side on that card.
Well, I'm actually going to go in a different direction, because I know there's the obvious Irish thing, but as we have Jack on the show, I think one of the most sensational bantamweights we've seen in Europe is in a title fight here, Jack Cartwright, and he's fighting a guy that I've been trying to find everything about out all week, and I can't really put too much together about him. He's fighting a guy from Poland called Sylvester Miller. Yeah, but Cartwright is just sensational. He won the tournament there a couple of years ago, defended the title a couple of times. Like, Jack, do you take any? Do you watch Cartwright? Do you see what he's doing there? It's sensational in your way.
Yeah, Jack Cartwright, he's a monster. In fairness to him, he's been so dominant in all his fights. He's just a wrecking ball. Like, he's seriously good in that division. He's just gone through everybody, you know, and he's just a wild man. And to be honest, I hope to God he signs for the UFC by the time I'm fighting for the title. So it's I just leave it. If he gets out of there, then I can relax, you know. Whereas I can't just keep saying no to fight.
Come on,
faking
it. You're slow playing it until he gets to the
UFC. Call him out now.
No, I can't fake a broken jaw for much longer, you know. I have to wait for him to sign and I'm game, you know. So
we're going to get you on that social media, and you're just going to call him out and say, Jack Cartwright, motherfucker, you're taking everything I work for.
Imagine I started calling him out. He'd probably knock me straight out if I walked into the hobby. Jesus.
And I know Darren,
he's a beast, yeah.
Yeah, I know, Darren, you have a teammate fighting on that card as well on the prelims, Joshua Onwardy. He's fighting a guy who's 1-3 on a 2-loss skate. Is this one the one for Onworthy to put on a show?
Should be. I mean, he's moving up, so he's moving up to welterweight for the first time. So it's a big step up in size for him. So yeah, should be. I mean, he's feeling very sharp in training. You can thank him for the black eye as well. But yeah, I think I'm looking forward to watching him. You know, I think should be an interesting step up because again, that guy's coming down from like light heavyweight. I think he's had some fights at, and Josh at one point was fighting that featherweight. Like, so it's he's getting quite bigger, but it should be a good fight for him.
And of course, in his last one, he had the win over Leon Hill, who stepped up on 24 or 48 hours notice. Which
fair play to him for that. That's crazy.
It's always quick. It's always quick to point to the guy that steps up on short notice, but you also have to factor in as well the guy that has to take the fight, who's prepared for someone else and has to take the fight on 24 hours notice as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's not much people like Leon Hill as well. You know, like that kind of awkward, the rangy height as well. Like to, you know, you'd be worried about that kind of style of fight for a whole fight camp. You know, and then to learn on it about a day's notice is definitely difficult. So he did a good job.
Yeah, made it a tough night for him. Like he kept getting back up every time we got him down. He was getting back up constantly. Like
Leon was game for sure. And of course, Leon actually fights in Cage Legacy, the upcoming card. He fights Pa Lahan, so that should be another banger of a fight on Pa's professional debut. Just back to the Cage Warriors card, you also have Ian Gary, the one we were alluding to earlier. Ian, this is the thing with Ian. Ian has looked absolutely phenomenal. He's looked unstoppable. 4 finishes in these 5 fights, 5-0. But he's going against a guy who's, yes, he's on a 2-fight skid, but his 2-fight skid was in the UFC. Lost to Jake Matthews, lost to Sergey Kanzarov. And nobody's ever taken this guy out. Nobody's ever finished him. This is a legit tough test for Ian to see where he's at.
Yeah, I think Ian is a great fighter. I think he definitely has the potential to make it like in like on that 4-man tournament, 100%.
Yeah. Is 5-0 too early in your career to be taken on a UFC vet?
I think so. I think
it's hard to know.
He's right. I mean, like, carry on, Jack.
No, like it's hard to know, like, you know, because it comes down to the individual. Like, you know, it's like. Yeah, he may be a UFC vet, like, but you know, like, you also have to kind of look at the new generation of fighters coming up. Like, you know, Ian is a new generation of fighter, and like each generation is almost better than the next. You know, yeah, it might be soon for him now, but you know, but like he's there for a reason. Like I said with the title fights, you know, like, so I'm assuming he's coming, he's game, and like, you know, like you could say so just because he was in the UFC, like, but this could be a tough fight for your man as well, you know, but yeah, but it could be too soon. Yeah, could be too, but you never know.
I mean, he's stepped up to every challenge they've given so far. So I mean, I'd be faithful that he would do it, or hopeful that he would do it anyway.
Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah, he's every fight he does, he's going to have to go against someone better that next time, you know. And like as I said, you won't get an easy fight in Cage Warriors. So like he's ready for it. He's proved himself to get this far. So like, what's the worst that'll happen? He loses this fight and kind of just starts again. Like, and you know, if that's the case, that's the case. But we'll see.
And it'd be remiss of us not to mention as well that Ackman, his opponent, is only 8 fights deep into his pro career himself. He was 6-0 when he got to the UFC, so perhaps it was too soon for him. But he has. I just think that experience being in there for 2 fights is invaluable as well. Look, I still see Ian Gary picking up a win here, but I certainly don't think he finishes him, and I think it's a very tough out for him. Yeah,
Ian Gary's absolutely bananas. He's no matter, like, he's just always hyped up. Like, I've never met a man that's more hyped up than Ian all the time. Like, you know, the last trilogy, like I was cutting weight, and I was even fine. I wasn't so bad, and like he was cutting weight as well and fighting the day after, and I was like, how are you talking this fast and having this much energy and talking to me? I was like, how do you compete with that in the cage? You know, if someone's that hyped up on the day of the weigh-in, you know, it's like Jesus. So he's always good to go. So I'm looking forward to it.
For sure. And look at the fight in the ex-UFC vet. It's a calculated risk, because if you lose, people will say it's too soon. But if you win, there's that you're 6-0, and people are expecting bigger things again next. So. And we do have to touch on the other title fight on the night. The lightweight title is on the line. It's Aggie Sardari versus Donovan Desme. What do you make of this fight, Andy?
But originally, Mehdi bin Lakhdar was in there. Unfortunately, had to pull out. And I was talking to Brad Wharton the other night, and I kind of made reference that this fight was going under the radar, the original one with Sardari and Mekdar, and he stopped me in my tracks, and he was like, "Whoa, now!" I was saying Desme is after bringing in a big crowd. He's Belgian. He's always fighting, and he was saying Lakhdar was in there deservedly. So it's going to be a cracker. It's two guys that just go straight forward. Like Sardari beat Jack Grant for the title. He just always comes forward. He doesn't have a stop. Desme is a guy that he's there to entertain the fans. So I think this is one that's really going under the radar, even though it's a title fight, because it's two Central European fighters fighting rather than one of our home crowd guys. But it's going to be a very, very good one. And that lightweight situation is wide open there as well. That it hasn't been settled in a while, and anybody can really come through there.
Yeah, and of course on Saturday you have the return of the baddie, which we will touch on in a second. But do you think he's still in that picture?
I think he's UFC bound. Like he's a tough one there. He's fighting David Martinez. He's on a 6-fight win streak, but we have only seen him once in the last 3.5 years. So I honestly think they're gearing up for Paddy to go into the UFC as the 100 entrant from Cage Warriors. I think it's been a thing they've planned, and I think Paddy's done it the right way. He's been in Cage Warriors for 8 years, and he's fought some monsters. And you look at the guy he's lost to. Cameron Else is in the UFC. Soren Bak is in Bellator, and Adnan Armani is in the UFC. He's gained some huge experience in Cage Warriors. He could have jumped ship with Chris Fishgold there about 4 or 5 years ago when they were featherweight, lightweight champion, and he stayed on. And I think that experience will be invaluable. I, as a fan, I'm nothing more than a fan, but I don't like seeing fighters make the transition too early in their career, because you can see them get in against high competition, hit 2 losses and then bounce out. So I'm really, really interested to see where Pimlet goes. He's only 26, so he's a kid at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll move on to Saturday with that, and just touching on that fight. His opponent is making his Cage Warrior debut. He's on a 6-fight win streak, but if you look at the records of the guys he's fighting, they're not exactly world-class fighters. Like the last opponent he beat, Jan Vada, was his last opponent was 1-1. And we haven't seen him also since July 2019. Paddy, this is a bit of the re-return, because the return, of course, was at Cage Warriors 113. We haven't seen him since. What are you expecting to see from Paddy? The same old Paddy? Or has it been so long now that we're going to see a kind of a slower, different version of the Paddy?
I'd expect to see the same kind of Paddy.
Anyone wants to take it? So Jack.
Go for it. Go for it.
I mean, from what you can see on his social media, he seems to be constantly training away the whole time. I wouldn't expect to see a slower Paddy. Definitely not inside there. Be interesting to see him inside there. I think people, if they're constantly in there, they're going to be evolving. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. You said he's still so young. I don't think it's time for him to slow down just yet.
Yeah.
No, I'd say he's coming in hot and fast. Right? Yeah, I'd say he's just going to be the same as always in terms of fighting. Yeah, he might be a different approach in terms of his energy outside the cage, but I'd say once he's in there, I'd say it's the same old Paddy, for sure.
He looked sensational against Decky Dalton the last time out. He looked really, really good there. I just think, when I look at the fighters right now that I think are ready to make that transition, he's at the top of the list for me.
Yeah. My only concern there, we said that 6 years ago.
What?
My only concern is we said that 6 years ago.
I know, yeah.
When is it going to come? But like you say, maybe the 100th fighter to transition over is the way they're looking at it. What else on Saturday night are you excited about, lads?
I'm looking forward to a good tear up.
I was waiting for it. So, of course, you're fighting Lebland on Saturday, the opening fight of the card. What can we expect to see in this one?
I'm looking forward to, I suppose, looking for a lot of head kicks, I suppose, in respect. But I think he's going to be kind of a pressure. He seems to look to pressure to the fence a lot of the time. So I can expect him to trying to press me against the fence. I've been looking at a lot of cage turnovers and my own attacks from there, and I'm happy to keep at the distance with him, play along with him. Yeah,
and I just look back at your last performance there. Like up until 3 minutes left in the fight, it's probably your best performance to date, in my opinion. You just looked absolutely phenomenal. 2 10-8 rounds. Are we going to expect to see a newer, more improved version again
I'll be hoping so. Yeah, I mean, I've been working on like a lot more linear work, as opposed to that time. You know, I think I played a little bit, switched off a little bit at kind of mid range with him in the third round. I took my eye off the ball, so definitely been working a lot more on just keeping my focus throughout the round and just more linear movement.
And where do you think this fight gets you in terms of the division? I'm
not looking to skip any ladders. I mean, look, if it means give me Hignett again after this, you know what I mean? I'll take that one. I want to claim my way back up to those that have beat me. You know, I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to look to try and skip anything. So if this is done, give me Hignett or whoever's next. And there it is.
Darren, do you follow, again, there's a ranking system available for Cage Warriors now. MMA prospects do it. And they have you in there at 8 and they have LeBlanc at 10. So, a big victory here, you're not too far away from it. You know, when you see the fighters in front of you, you have a beast at the top of that division in Jake Hadley. And you fought a lot of monsters on your way. I know you fought Franz Malambo, Lane O'Driscoll, guys like super guys, Breen Bouland. You know, your record is I think is at 6-5 or something like that. But you've been in there against monsters. It's not showing how good you are. I think you're a lot closer to the top of the division than you're giving yourself credit for there.
I mean, I think definitely like my last even couple of fights, like with Hammersinger was a close fight as well. You know, I wasn't out of my depth by any means in there. It's a bit of luck as well inside there. You know, like as well as everything else, like it's takes a bit of luck to inside there. So as I said, the last 2 fights, I feel like my performances, I was happy with them, but at the same time, it's like I didn't do enough to get to secure the win. So gotta just improve, work harder inside there.
Very good. And I suppose what other fights on the card are you looking forward to? Are you just focused on your own, or are you going to get out of there and look at any of the other fights that are on that card?
I will probably get back and watch 1 or 2 right when I get home. Paddy fight definitely has my interest that night. You got Morgan Sherrier fighting on the main card as well. I think, or the main event, isn't he? That he's usually a good scrap, so that should be an interesting one as well. I'm looking forward to watching him.
And of course, he goes up against Vucenic. You kind of touched on this one a little bit earlier, Andy. Another one that it's not a sleeper because everyone's talking about it, and this is kind of what they've been building to all week. But I just don't think it's getting enough attention. This is a phenomenal fight.
Massive fight. Like if you look at social media presence, Sherrier, every time he speaks, the French come out in waves for him. They just love him. And if we revert back to the last superstar that Cage Warriors provided, you know, McGregor, Sherrier's at a higher trajectory than McGregor was at this point in Cage Warriors. His social media following is huge. Cage Warriors are building it around him. They're going to go to France on the back of him. They're signing French Warriors on the back of him. It's a fairly big gamble for Cage Warriors to put him in there against Vucenic, who's an absolute monster in his own right. So this is, you know, as elite as it gets for me that Cage Warriors can do it right now.
Yeah.
He'd be a bit like myself, so Morgan Sherrier, would he?
Yeah. The Cork men are coming out in waves. Yeah, look, it's one of those. If Sherrier wins here, I think he's maybe one, possibly after this. But if not one more, he's surely going to the UFC. Well, look, just what he's done in his last 3 fights has been phenomenal. I think the Goodwin win to pick up the belt. Like Goodwin's another guy that he on any given night he could take anyone out at 145 pounds, and I think Vucenic is the same. His last loss in Cage Warriors, after the 3-fight win streak. Of course, it's a Soren back, and you mentioned he's fighting for Bellator now, and Soren could easily have gone the UFC route as well. I think he was good enough. So yeah, look, Sherrier is probably one of the next in that ilk to make the transition over. Is there any other fights on the card that you're interested in, Jack? Have you got your eyes on anyone?
That Saturday show is a good show. In fairness, there's a cracker of a few fights on it. You know, like I'm looking forward to see your man Nicolas LeBlanc. I'm looking forward to seeing him. But I'm only joking. But like Darren's fight starting off is what I'm looking forward to, because after Darren's last performance, it was a serious step up from even his fight before that. I'm just looking forward to that fight. It's definitely going to be a great way to start the show. And going on to that, then I know Nathan Fletcher is another fella in the bantamweight division who's kind of putting on a good run of fights at the moment. So and I just
That'll be
know
a
from
great fight, you and him.
Yeah, I like Nathan Fletcher as a guy that I even just thought of. Like, I can see myself fighting someone like him down the line, Joe. Not just him, just a load of people in that bantamweight division. So, like there's that fight, which is great, and so I'm like even the prelims are nearly getting me more fired up than the main events, But probably just for personal reasons. But in the main event there, I saw man Tobias Harila there from Sweden.
Yeah.
I think this is his first fight for
Cage Warriors,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Like Tobias there is a multiple medal winner at IMAFs, and I'd say he was he was one of the main fellas at a lot of the IMAF tournaments when I was over there. He was a monster at the lightweight division, but like he's fighting at featherweight now, so he's no joke either. So that's whole Saturday show is actually nearly one fight after the other is just a cracker. Like, so it's be interesting to see what way those fights go.
Yeah, and Hamila, another guy with 23 amateur fights, 9 pro fights already, and only 1 loss. Even at amateur, he has a win and a loss with Kieran Clark. They had 2 great fights.
Yeah, they had great fights. Yeah, in fairness, that was like a little Rocky and a Rocky showdown between the two of them, because I think was it Harila knocked out Kieran at the was it at the Europeans or something, and
Europeans in 18 or 19, was it?
And I don't remember. I can't remember what year now. Like, but I think we were over in Bulgaria, and like myself and Kieran were staying with each other. Yeah, something like that. And I think he got knocked out by Harida, and I lost that day as well. So the two of us went out after and just went to Krispy Kreme and just got fat together, the two of us. But then literally the following year, I think that was like his last. So he spent the year training for the World Championships in Bahrain, and Kieran fought some fella in the first round, won that quick, and then he was matched to fight Tobias Harila again. So like he was like a demon, because just to get him back after getting knocked out, and then he ended up beating Tobias, and Tobias is one of the favourites of the tournament. It was brilliant. So they had a little there could be a third fight there down the line, who knows.
100%, yeah. And even the guy he's fighting, Aidan Stephen, he's no joke as well. He's 3 losses there to Paul Hughes, Cal Eleanor, and Amable as well. So they're 3 tough guys. So yeah, another very interesting fight. The sleeper on that card for me, outside of obviously the Darren one, is Nathan Fletcher and Martin Yoli. This fight is just absolutely phenomenal. 4-0 guy against 6-0 guy. And of course, Martin Yoli, for those who don't know, actually fought once with Bellator and had a 6-second head kick KO knockout of Simone D'Anna. Could have easily hung around in Bellator, I reckon. Could have got more fights there, especially with the Italian interest. And I don't see him being long for Cage Warriors. I see him going back to Bellator quite soon, when they do come back to Europe, I suppose. But Nathan Fletcher is a big test, former amateur champion with Cage Warriors at the bantamweight division. So another 2 guys to watch out for in your division there, Jack.
Oh, for sure, yeah, for sure. Although when you tell your man knocking people out with head kicks, I might leave him off. But we'll try to jump towards Nathan first, maybe. Hopefully he might knock me out as hard as your man will. But
he's more of a submission guy, to be fair.
Yeah, sure, I don't mind getting choked out, that's grand. But what's it called? The bantamweight division is it's stacked, in fairness, and like it's definitely one of the divisions that are I feel like the flyweight and the bantamweight divisions, like they're nearly every fight you get is like the difference in fighters are so diverse, as in so you could fight someone one fight, but the next fight they're so different. So it's really weird, those 2 weights for me in that Cage Warriors, they're just such different styles nearly every fight. Whereas when you move up, you get the explosive and the fighters who are kind of well rounded. But Jesus, the difference in the fighters at the flyweights and bantamweights are always on your toes. So you never know what way it's going to go in those divisions.
100%. Before we let you go, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to send it out. There's a few people watching live there now, and we're going to ask them to send in a few questions. So if anyone has any questions for Jack Maguire, if anyone has any questions for Darren O'Gorman, or of course if they have questions for the 2 fat lads on the left, no problem, we're happy to answer them as well. But we'll just kick things off there. We have a question in from David Askins, who's asking, have COVID restrictions impacted your training camp? So we'll go to Darren there first with that one.
Slightly. I mean, it's just, as I said, we're still getting sparring and we're still getting the classes in, but just mainly I suppose you get more of your training done during the daytime as opposed to before. Like we'd have had like the session in the daytime and in the evening. You get just working more in that base MMA class as opposed to I would have done MMA and then you'd have had jiu-jitsu classes or the Muay Thai classes on during the day as well. Like, and we're just getting into the bulk of the main MMA work. Like,
and is it less maybe? Is it nearly easier in the fact that there's less distractions around? There's more of a bubble, tight unit, and there's not as much things going on around the gym.
Yeah, I mean it's good for getting the sessions in, definitely. As I said, the little extra bits, it's harder to get the time in for those. Like, but yeah, it's not the end of the world. Like,
but I suppose that depends on on who's there then and how focused they are. Like, I know a lot of guys are putting in the hours on their own time kind of way, and that's what you kind of have to do. Jack, I know obviously you had to pull out of the fight, but was it the same for you? Have COVID restrictions kind of impacted your training camps to this point?
Oh yeah, sure. It changes it, like, big time. Like, but it's you kind of have to find a way around really if you're going to compete. I mean, I had to change a lot of the times around to get strength conditioning in, or go somewhere that I wouldn't usually do it. You'd have to find a roundabout way. It definitely wouldn't be the same camp as you'd get in if the gyms were open and stuff. And you'd have to stick to your bubble and have maybe the same 4 training partners, 5 training partners, instead of having a big wide group of styles or people. But it's definitely different. But as I said, what can you do about it? You kind of have to just get on with it. It's you can kind of sit there and just kind of mope about it, but it's kind of still has to get done, even though it's different. But as I said, if you want to get the fight going and get ready for the fight, you have to do what you got to do and what's in front of you, and it is different. But we just get over it, I suppose.
Yeah, of course. And I suppose having Aaron there as the coach and brother, is it easier for you to get like that kind of like even just pad work in or stuff like that? Is that an advantage having your brother kind of as your head coach as well?
Nah, I absolutely despise the man. He's not awkward little man. Awkward little man he is. But
is he ever going to fight again, isn't he?
I don't know. I think with this whole COVID crack, with the gym being closed and then us having to manage only fighters, it's actually quite like, I'd say Darren would know as well, having to manage your own fight camp and other fighters who are fighting can be stressful enough, but when it's just fighters only and the gym's closed and your business is down, it's hard for someone like Aaron to focus on himself and then know that there's 1 or 2 other fighters fighting next week and he can't give them the full. So I think he's just kind of taking the sacrifice just of himself, letting kind of his own fighters go on. But hopefully he'll get back in there. He's sitting on weight, like Aaron is sitting on weight at featherweight every day, waiting. Like I'd say what would happen now with him now, I'd say, is someone might pull out of a fight last minute and Aaron's like, I can take it, so he's not thinking fight camp, he's just staying fight ready, and if something pops up he'll take it on a day's notice, not a bother, but as of now he's not thinking about fights, he's just thinking about his fighters fighting, so which is fair enough. Like I would like to be kind of running a full-time gym and coaching everyone and doing a weight cut and and other people's fights, so yeah, hopefully he gets back in there.
Yeah, and of course, look, if Cage Warriors does come back to Cork in the near future, we might see both of you on that card and Darren as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll actually fight Darren. Let's fucking do it. Let's do it. Not a flyweight though. No.
Your jaw can't take it, Jack.
Yeah, I get post-traumatic stress anyway from that last Cork show. Jesus, I used to be good up to Neptune. I always say I have a 100% finish rate in Neptune in my first 3 fights, and then I went to fight in my 4th one, and that didn't go according to plan at all. So I ended up in hospital. So I am never going back to Neptune again. So so affect that anyway.
We have a question in here as well, specifically for Darren from one of our admins at the MMA Opinion, Thomas Lan. He says, for Darren, who do you think would be the best next opponent to advance your career based on name, value, style, and likelihood?
I mean, as I said before, like I think I'm not looking to skip anyone by any means. So I mean, let me climb back up if they want to give me Hignett next or Amber Singer after that. As I said, I don't feel like I should jump the line on these boys if they've taken their win on me. Like, so then let me get back to that way, or else whoever else Ian Dean thinks is a good idea. But definitely, as I said, I'm in no rush to skip a ladder. Give me any of those boys next.
So looking to get a rematch next.
That's what I heard.
Andy, do you have any questions there for the boys?
No, I just want to wish Darren the best of luck on Saturday night. I'll be cheering for you. I'll have about 24 cans of Heineken around me, and I'll be cheering you on. So, best of luck,
Nice
brother.
one. Thank you. Thank
And,
you very much.
sure.
Yeah, I know you're going to put in a great performance and get back into the win column then and move up that flyweight division, and call out Jake Hadley maybe.
Someday, boy, someday.
Someday. I wouldn't do that anyway. Fuck that.
No.
Guys, genuinely, thank you very much for joining us today. We might do a review show again next week, so if you're up for that, let me know. But appreciate you having you on, and of course, Darren, best of skills on Saturday. And thanks to everyone. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching us on Facebook, make sure to head over to YouTube and subscribe to that as well. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and we will see you later.
Nice.
Take care.